Sumireko Ogawa, or Sumi for short, is a voluptuous bookstore clerk who dreams of becoming an award-winning novelist simply because she wrote blockbuster novels in her youth when she was smaller and things were sweeter. Sadly for her, reality creeps in, and she finds out the hard way, like some women do, that the world doesn't fully revolve around her. She lives life peacefully with her weird beta male manager and her young and weird partner who seem to have a crush on her. One day, her life drastically worsens when strange occurrences start popping up around the city where she lives. To bring some spice to her already boring life, she teams up with her weird co-worker, Ren Adashino, and sets out to investigate the happenings around town. Little did she know that Ren, her very own co-worker, had his dirty little secrets. To find out what secrets this weirdo had in his cupboard, grab a beer or a drink, sit back, and enjoy the recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the recap so you don't miss future episodes and recaps like this one. It all begins when a little girl wakes up in a dilapidated building with eerie music playing all around her as she brushes her teeth in the terrible bathroom, puts on what seems to be her school uniform, grabs her bag, and greets her guardian or brother farewell before heading out to get to school. Without further context, the scene shifts to the next one. It was a bright night like every night in the city of Tokyo, Japan, and the bookstore clerk, Sumi, was just about to finish her shift for the day. After arranging a set of new books on the shelf, she returns to her station and stands there with her annoying little co-worker, Ren, who was busy making fun of her and her big boobs. He makes annoying little cuckoo sounds that make Sumi almost curse him. Ren calms the mood and tells her he's just trying to mimic the Kanko Dori bird, which is also called the common cuckoo. In the end, Sumi calms her balls and asks Ren if she's really that boring to work with. Ren lets her know that that's not the case at all. The only reason why he works there is because she's there with him during every shift. Now this made Sumi chuckle a little bit, but then she told him to try his luck again in 10 years, when he's old enough to get her pregnant. Ren returns the jab to her by telling her that she'd have already matured into a nice cougar that might be too much for him to handle. Sumi's smile quickly turns to a frown as she changes the topic. Moving on, she talks about how many bookstores all over town are closing down one after another. From the looks of things, people don't value hard copy material anymore. To most, a PDF or EPUB file is enough to get their curiosities well fed. With that, Sumi yawns and gets very sleepy. Ren notices this and asks her if she was up all night writing. Sumi tells him that she was up all night writing and studying some weird phenomena about the occult forum on the Kisaragi station that came up the previous day. Ren changes his expression a little bit and tells Sumi that she should stop reading bullshit articles about unrealistic urban legends. Naturally, Sumi takes offense to this and smacks the loudmouth in the face. Then, she continues raving about the sexual effects of reading such an amazing text. Amid their discussion, the manager of the bookstore shows up and gives Sumi an ugly-looking book that was reverse shoplifted as a present for her upcoming 28th birthday. Sumi doesn't seem to appreciate the book at all, but she takes it from her boss as a symbol of good faith. Moments later, when her shift ends, she and her co-worker, Ren, get to the cloakroom to change their work clothes before going home. Ren scolds her for not telling him that it's her birthday. If he'd known about it earlier, then he might have gotten her a present. Sumi chuckles and tells him that his leaving her alone would be the best present he could ever give to her. Dang bro, that's gotta hurt. However, Ren wasn't backing down, not until he got his chance to fondle her large jugs. He thinks of another pickup line that makes Sumi laugh and lets it out without remorse. Sumi ends up chuckling as the duo walks out of their shop to get home. They tag along with each other until Sumi gets to her bus stop. She part ways with her snide friend and hits the shower shortly after getting home. When it's time for her to relax, she opens a canned beer and watches a movie as she chugs it down. Halfway into the movie, she reminisces about the good times back when she used to be celebrated and recognized as a young and talented youth writer. If only she could relive the good old days. At least the memory of the occurrence managed to bring a smile to her face as she watched the clock in her room hit midnight, which was the start of her birthday. Sumi wishes herself a happy 28th birthday and says a few more things to herself before slamming herself onto her cushion of self-regret. In a bid to relive her past glory, she recalls the Newcomer's Award she received when she was 15, as well as some of the books she wrote back then. Now that she's over 20, such a person isn't called a young prodigy anymore. Now, she's just regarded as a normal person who didn't do the exceptional thing to stand out from the crowd. As she sinks herself into her plush cushion chair, her bag falls from the bed and spills out all its contents, including the book. Sumi sees the book, picks it up, and opens it to read its contents. From what she knew about her Japanese, the book's characters were written in hiragana, and she couldn't even read the title. Eventually, she decides to read the key points of the book out loud and finds a certain text that sounds like an incantation. Without even knowing it, she goes under the moonlight with the time still playing around midnight and reads the words, "In the heavens, the sun and moon shine. You are like them in my thoughts, and I regret that with each new day, you grow older." Nothing happens at the moment as she chuckles and remembers that even people from back then wanted to be younger too. She puts her book down and dresses up to get to the 24/7 convenience store, just to get a cake for herself. On her way there, Ren wishes her a happy birthday on the messenger and gets a little sus with her. Sumi, on the other hand, retaliates by swearing to cut down his hands if care isn't taken. In another part of town, Ren is seen standing under a bridge as he reads his chat with Sumi. Sumi, however, finds her way into the convenience store, and just as she's about to grab a cake for herself, something very weird happens. Her body shrinks down to match that of a 15-year-old's. Suddenly, her clothes, shoes, and even bra don't fit anymore. Sumi is not only devastated, but also scared of what people might say or call her if they happen to see her walk in earlier. After the transformation, she struggles to find her way to the fridge where the drinks are kept and realizes that she's been transformed to look like a 15-year-old. She staggers back and accidentally breaks a wine bottle on the aisle. This alerts the storekeeper as he calls her to come answer for her sins. Sumi ignores the man and runs for dear life so she can understand what just happened to her. The next day, Sumi missed work and got her manager concerned. The manager asks Ren about her whereabouts, but Ren covers up for her, telling him that Sumi's been diagnosed with some really bad diarrhea and would need to stay at home for a few days before she can resume work. The manager feels very sorry for her and tells Ren not to worry about her since she's pretty down. After he's gone, Ren takes his time to think about what could be happening to Sumi. He chats her up over the week, but couldn't get a quick response from her. When she does reply to him, she calls him a pain for bothering her, as she doesn't know who the guy is at all. Confused, Ren decides to do something about it, as it's now official that Sumireko has been kidnapped. After she was absent for a week, Ren decided to go to her house to check up on her. Getting there, he knocked several times but didn't get a response. He then sees himself in and smells something good coming from the bed, only to realize that it is Sumi's bra. He analyzes the scene and finds no signs of a struggle. Just then, he senses something strange and turns back to find a sign with an exclamation mark on it. At that time, young Sumi is seen in the alleyway nearby trying to figure something out. Ren checks around and finds out the cause of the entire ruckus in the first place, which is the weird book the manager gave her the previous day. Sumi gets very happy to be young again and thinks about the good novels she can write with her young brain. Her happiness is short-lived when her nemesis, Ren, shows up to take her back home. Sumi, who couldn't remember him, gets a sharp pain in her head and complains about what could be wrong. Just then, Ren shows up behind her and tells her she's experiencing the effect of the curse from the book she read about a week ago. Her body couldn't adapt to the excessive shrinkage of blood vessels and bone, so now it's spurting out the excess liquids, including blood, everywhere. After the episode of pain, Sumi asks Ren why he's not surprised to see her like that. Ren smiles and tells her that she's like that because she read the curse words that she wasn't supposed to read aloud, louder than she should have. So, if you said those curse words I mentioned earlier, then there's a chance you could wake up to be a teenager tomorrow. Let's continue the story, guys. So, as expected from any young and foolish teenager, Sumi didn't believe Ren one bit. Ren keeps his cool and tells her not to act stupid, especially now that she's living through the effects of her actions. For starters, the curse words were written by inhumane things and are grouped into curses that bring back the dead, curses that manipulate people's hearts, and the ones that bring back someone's youth. Ren continues reading and analyzing the text until he finds out about the moon god, Tsukuyomi's water of youth. From the looks of things, Sumi met all the conditions to activate such a rare curse. When she asks him what the conditions are, Ren tells her that the person must recite the poem or curse under the moon. Secondly, the person must be at least 28 years of age. Thirdly, the person must say the spell in the hours of midnight. And lastly, the person must be a virgin. Sumi couldn't believe her ears as she realized that she'd been exposed. Ren tells her not to worry too much about the virgin part and just be glad that she's still alive. Sumi spits out some more blood from her eyes, nose, and mouth and asks Ren if she's going to die from the curse. However, Ren tells her there's still a way to save her. To do that, she only has to read the antidote to the curse under the moon, so she can revert the changes. Sumi follows him to a spot where they can see the moon and speak the other spell. Thankfully, the spell works, and Sumi gets back to her normal self. Embarrassed, she covers her panties to keep Ren from staring at her. Then, when he's not looking, she bails on him and runs as fast as she can with the book. Ren tried to catch her, but then again, she used the curse poems to her advantage, so she could turn both small and big to her at will. Ren catches up to her and asks her why she's so hellbent on becoming smaller. Sumi bursts into tears and tells him that she's just realizing that she isn't that talented anymore. Now that she can get younger, she will get back to the spotlight where she belongs. Ren, however, convinces her to believe in herself more so that she can be the best of herself. Sumi calms down and gets back to her normal size before handing the book over to Ren. Ren takes the book to a very eerie place that seems to be under a subway and returns it to the operators there. After giving them their book, they ask him if he would be interested in doing more with them, but Ren would rather do something else than deal with those riffraffs. He exits the subway and heads back outside to check up on Sumi. In a flashback, Sumi relives a time in her adult life when she was critiqued by the prying eyes of the novel critics. While some felt like her content was overcomplicated for a 15-year-old, others felt like she was just writing the scenes to suit herself. And the problem with that is that scenes like that rarely even make it to the printing press. As such, Sumi was shunned yet again by some losers who probably didn't know how long it took to write such a large novel. One of them even had the guts to ask Sumi to tell him what her age was. Sumi, who was too devastated to say anything, just sank her head into the ground and accepted whatever insults she could at the moment before getting back home. This, however, didn't stop our boss lady from writing up more novels like the champ she is, even if most of them are boring romance novels. Fast forwarding to reality, Ren submits the Curiosity Book of Curses to the operatives of that subway station and asks for some tickets to a place. However, the operatives shock him when they tell him that the book can only be exchanged for one ticket to Yami Station. Ren isn't after such a prize, so he collects the Curiosity Book and climbs back outside to meet his sister, Adashino Odo, who is pretty concerned about him not getting a ticket that can take them out of that world. Ren tells her not to worry too much about that and just trusts him to find more curiosities so he can exchange them all for a ticket to take her to her world. As they speak through their minds to keep silent, Oto asks Ren to come along with her so they can be together. Before he could answer her question, Sumi shifted her sleeping position and exposed her breasts to the onlookers. Oto looked disgusted as Sumi's panties were giving Ren a weird bulge in his pants. She asks him if Sumi is his girlfriend, and Ren tells her that she isn't at all. He introduces Sumi as his work senpai, which has nothing to do with him sexually. He also explains what made him help her back in their real world, and tells Oto not to worry too much about her at all. Then, he bends to check up on Sumi, and finds out that he's going to need some girl clothes for her to wear if he's ever going to get rid of the bulge in his pants. He then looks at Oto and asks if she has any spare clothes she can lend him. Oto gives him some shorts and allows her brother to try to fit them into Sumi's slender legs. While he's at it, Oto speaks through her mind and asks Ren if he ever plans on finding more curiosities. Ren tells her he's going to do such a thing if he knows where to search. Just then, Oto speaks up and tells her brother that she knows of a place where he can find curiosity. Ren asks her to name the place, and she says, Kun Girls Academy, which turns out to be the school she attends. Around that time, Sumi wakes up and starts mouthing curse words to make herself smaller. Ren and Oto are left shocked as they watch the lady shrink in size. Eventually, Sumi gets back up and follows both Oto and her brother to their hiding spot. They call a house to change into one of her school uniforms. After putting on the overly tight uniform, Sumi appears neatly dressed and smart with her big body parts bulging out everywhere. Ren gets interested in seeing her huge body as he takes his time to check Sumi's body out. With a smile on his face, he tells her to become one of Oto's friends from now on. Sumi, however, wasn't going to suck it up to a teenage boy without an explanation, so she demands one. Ren explains the concept of curiosities to her and likens them to mysterious disappearances caused by spirits. Sumi understands where he's coming from, so she begins to understand what he truly means. When Ren is sure that she's getting the whole gist, he moves on to tell her that those deemed unnecessary in their original world are usually brought to that place to face some sort of punishment or continue living there. Sumi asks him to tell her what he wants her to do, and Ren says she only has to become friends with Oto and accompany her to school every day so she can infiltrate the school in his place and figure out what the hell is making people disappear. At this point, Oto was pretty much annoyed and disgusted by Sumi's presence, simply because Sumi had larger breasts than she did. Sumi gives Ren's request a little thought and accepts the mission. Ren is shocked and asks to confirm if she knows the dangers of the mission. She could be working with very scary and dangerous spirits that won't hesitate to kill her if they get the chance. If she's going to be working with them, he asks her to tell him why she would accept the mission so easily. Sumi tells her it's because she's Ogawa Sumire, the author. After saying that, his waistcoat rips into shreds after enduring the stress of her oversized, curvy body. Sumi asks Ren what he's going to do about it, and Ren starts by calling her the bearer of youth, which is a person who can make herself younger at will. In simpler terms, this means that Sumi can simply say the poems without meeting any conditions and would be able to turn to her youthful self at will. He tells her to try and invoke the spell right there so they can confirm his suspicions. Although Sumi doesn't believe him, she still recites the incantations, and to her surprise, she returns to her high school form. The next morning, Oto wakes up as usual and brushes her teeth with Sumi this time around. When she's done preparing for school, she climbs up the subway with Sumi and treks with her to school. Sumi stops for a moment to pinpoint where they are on the map. However, she quickly joins Oto so she doesn't get lost. On her way, she remembers what Ren told her about the Kun Girls Academy. Apparently, Kun Girls Academy is a combination of a middle school and high school, and always makes sure to uphold its moral standards for every student studying there. Besides, gaining admission to the school is pretty easy, so she doesn't have to worry about getting into the school on the first day. Lately, they've been experiencing inexplicable phenomena that Sumi needs to investigate alongside Oto. As both girls approach the school, Oto greets a man walking his dog and manages to capture his attention. Sumi laughs and jokes about this and tries her best to cheer Oto up with some jokes. Oto, on the other hand, wasn't joking at all. When she can't take it anymore, she stops and warns Sumi to never interact with her when her friends are around, because she hasn't accepted her yet and does not think she will ever accept her. Just then, Oto's girl buddies call her name from afar and rush to her side to say hi. After the pleasantries, Nodoka and Mari find Sumi lurking around Oto and ask for her name. Before Sumi could answer, Oto blurts out her name as Wakzukuri, which surprises the girls for a second. Eventually, the bell rings, and they all leave for class. After they're gone, Oto angrily tells her not to ever think she's accepted by her. She also warns Sumi to stay away from Ren and calls her a lonely apartment wife. Sumi is left both shocked and surprised at her statement, but she lets it slide. As they approach the entrance to the school, Sumi recalls the incident that happened there. As it turns out, a large bunch of girls didn't attend class for some peculiar reason, and for that, Ren was concerned. So, he sent Sumi to ascertain the truth behind the girl's disappearance. On her way inside, Sumi finds an older student tying another younger student's ribbons. This act of kindness makes her eyes sparkle with joy as she realizes that there are still good people in this world. Oto becomes embarrassed of her and tries to push her out of the way to avoid pulling too much attention. However, Sumi wasn't budging at all. Another one of the senior students, Uname, shows up and says hi to them. She asks Sumi to tell her name, and Oto says Wakazukuri. Then, she pushes Sumi to the girls' toilet and locks her there till the end of the day. After school, she gets to the toilet and finds Sumi crying her heart out at Oto for leaving her in the toilet all alone when she's supposed to be chatting gaily with the other students. Oto ignores her tears and gives her some snacks to eat in the toilet. Sumi cries and asks Oto to tell her where she's going. Oto takes her to the front of the mirror in the bathroom and tells her to check out what's happening there. Apparently, Oto saw the yellow danger signpost there, which signifies that something bad happened in that bathroom. Sumi, on the other hand, couldn't see anything on the mirror's surface. She then tells Oto to explain those weird signposts to her so she can understand what they mean. Oto tells her that they are called markers, and they tell anyone who sees that there's been some kind of curiosity thingy there before. Sumi pretends to believe her for a while and warms up to the angry girl. Oto is very surprised to see herself wanting Sumi's attention. In the end, they walk outside together and get stopped on the way by a short-haired girl who is looking for a scoop in their daily newspaper. She thinks Oto and Sumi are dating and wants to get the first story before her rivals do. Soon enough, 3 other girls show up and apologize to Sumi for the ruckus the first girl caused. Then, they take Sumi to their classroom to give her a proper introduction to their school. While they're at it, the gossip girl with short hair speaks up and tells the group about a certain Akemi and Mika, both from class 3, kissing each other during recess. Apparently, Akemi was going out with Hitomi, who was in their group, and this broke her heart. As for Sumi, she was going crazy on the inside when she found out about the sodomy of the girls in the school. Not that it's bad though, but she was shocked to find out. Soon, the girls turn to her and ask her to narrate her experiences of a steamy romance before. To avoid disappointing everyone, Oto especially cooks up a stupid story about her tearing up any man she comes across and making sure that they all get interested in her type of crazy. Nodoka goes wild and asks her to tell them a steamier story, but then the others caution her and shift the conversation to talk about those who disappeared from school. Sumi is seen taking notes, and when she's done, she makes useful deductions. This weird event called the dribbler even has the victims' bodies going as hot as possible before they collapse and drool out of their mouths. There's no current treatment for it, but whenever the affected students are sent home, they're healed. However, if they return to school, the same thing happens to them again. This is why students haven't been attending school. After getting what she wanted, Sumi gets up and gets ready to leave the class. However, the students didn't want her gone yet, so they held her hands and told her to continue her story. Uname, the senior that Sumi and Oto greeted earlier, enters the class and trips over herself when she finds them holding Sumi's hands, as she thinks they are trying to bully her. She gets up, sends the other girls home, and tells Sumi to come with her to the rooftop. On getting there, she asks Sumi to tell her if she's being bullied or not. Sumi falls to the ground and starts crying as she tells her that she's just emotional for her concern. She then discusses everything with her, but then Uname asks for her dream, which Sumi explains. After hearing that Sumi wishes to be a novelist, Uname bursts into a happy mood and tells Sumi that her dream is awesome and she will always be there to protect and cheer her up. Shortly afterward, Sumi returns to her class. On the way, she's attacked playfully by the girls from before, so she can stop by and tell them her story. Sadly for them, they all collapse and start drooling just like her research says. Sumi bends and tells Oto to call an ambulance. However, Oto was too scared to do anything as she saw the danger signs, and Uname, the senior, licked the other students' drool off the floor like a pig.